Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com, for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Lindy Morelli. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, Hold Me, Heal Me. Available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. But if you want to gather everything that Lindy has in store, do yourself a favor and check out her personal site. And that's sacredlighthouse.org. There, you're going to find more information on her, more information on this amazing book. You're going to find another book that she has written. That one is called The Open Gate to Paradise, and a whole host of other things. People, I'm telling you, sacredlighthouse.org. That's the place you have to go. It is a one-stop shop for everything that she has to offer. And before we go any further, I want to quickly take this opportunity and point out the fact that Lindy was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best publishing firms in the business, people you already know, talking about City of Books. So if you're a writer out there who has done their due diligence, you've created your masterpiece, and now you need help moving the book you just developed, contact City of Books, people, because this is exactly what they specialize in. You're going to want to head on over to cityofbooks.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Lindy here on the line. People, her book, Hold Me, Heal Me, is beyond impressive. It is going to offer so much wisdom. Trust me when I tell you, it is a self-help book, but I'm oftentimes hesitant to use that term because for whatever reason, self-help has almost become like a demonized term, right? It almost has like a negative connotation. I don't understand why people feel that way about that particular categorization, but I promise you, we all need to better ourselves, and this book is going to help you do that. But specifically, it has been written to offer hope for people with chronic illnesses and pain. Even though that is the intended reader behind this, trust me when I tell you, people, if you read between the lines, if you take the notions found in this book, it is going to be catered to assisting you through adversity, regardless of what that adversity or that particular obstacle may be. This book provides wisdom that you are going to be able to benefit from. So believe me, whether you're living with chronic illness or seeking to understand its challenges, this conversation is a must read. This conversation is going to be beneficial, and Lindy is the perfect person suited to discuss it all. Pulling from her own obstacles and her own battles, she offers wisdom in her book that you're going to be able to take to the bank. Now sit back and strap in. Have your notebooks ready so you can take down some of the gems that she's going to offer here today. But by the time we've concluded, you're going to run and purchase your copies because you're going to understand you got to get it all. Lindy, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Hope you are too.
I am well, Lindy. Listen, better than I deserve to be, and I appreciate having you here. Your book is something profound, and it's something that is truly going to help change some perspectives here, right? It's going to help shift some personal points of view, and I believe you must have known that going into all of this, and that's really where I want to start, is with that inspiration. With a book as powerful as this, I don't think it was just you wanting to talk about your own experiences and put that out to the world. You must have known how beneficial this could be for others. Why did you feel compelled to write this book, Lindy?
I think everybody who suffers needs hope, and I think that's something everybody searches for. It's something we all need, we all search for, especially when we're suffering. So I think it's the spirit of God that inspired me to write the book. I don't think it has anything to do with me personally.
Love that. All right. Well, listen, without further ado, tell us more about your book, Hold Me, Heal Me.
So Hold Me, Heal Me was born out of my own experiences. It kind of just came, it flowed very naturally because I've been diagnosed with long COVID, chronic Lyme disease, and several other chronic conditions. So in the midst of that, I started to write about my own experiences of how I was gaining hope through these different illnesses, how I faced certain challenges, like what does a person do when they're in endless pain? What does a person do? How does a person find purpose? How does a person spend their days in a way that's useful and meaningful? And so I was struggling to answer these questions, but not in a hopeless way, never in a hopeless way. I never felt hopeless. And so I just felt that it was something natural to offer, like water flowing into an empty cup or something.
Yeah. Lindy, that brings up a great point that I want to touch on because, and I think this probably may have something to do with, as I mentioned at the top of the show, right? The self-help title or categorization. I think, just from my own assumption and in conversations that I've had, that can often sometimes come across overly simplistic or even inauthentic, right? So you're talking about wanting to articulate these things in a natural way. And I think that there is a lot there. How did you approach articulating this concept of hope in a way that still felt genuine and not overly simplistic or even dismissive of the struggles that any individual reader may be dealing with?
Yeah, I'm not real fond of the term self-help either. I mean, I know we have to, it's good for us to be motivated to do all we can to, to grow as persons, as people, and all that. But I mean, I think when a person is really faced with suffering, extreme suffering, not just the things I mentioned like long COVID, which we know all about the damage and the ravages that COVID produced in people's lives.
Yeah.
And many people know about Lyme disease and fibromyalgia and things that we hear about today. They're kind of mysterious illnesses that, some doctors are still unfamiliar with. But I think it's not only those types of things. It's when people face pain over and over and over and over every single day, every single month, every year after year. What do they do? How do they maintain hope? And I don't think it's a matter of pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and trying to engender something that's false, or giving ourselves a pep talk. That's not what that is. It has to come from, the Spirit of God, from a supernatural source of goodness, from the Holy Spirit. I'm writing as a Christian and as a Catholic, so that's the only way I can really speak about it, because that's really what I can offer is what has really helped me. People do ask questions about what is the purpose of this pain? What do I do with this endless pain? Is this pain going to just identify, is this who I am as a person? Is this going to be the only thing that's going to be the summation of my entire life? And people do wonder that. When you're faced with pain that is on all levels of your life, which is disruptive, which disrupts you in every way, not just physically, but when you have a chronic illness, or maybe you have some other illness like, I don't know, depression or something that just won't end. You do ask questions and you do wonder how you're going to, what the reason is, and what is the purpose, and how am I going to surmount this, or am I ever going to? And that's what people need, is the answer. They need a source of hope that is not flimsy. And I think self-help is sort of a flimsy term, for lack of a better word to put it, because that was the only genre they could fit my book in, I guess. But it's not really self-help. I don't really agree with it. It's reaching out for God. It's reaching out for the spiritual force that can come from embracing suffering and embracing it, not because we're masochists and not because we, think, oh, suffering is great. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay, we're not masochists. We're not ready to, destroy ourselves. But what people do wonder what the purpose of suffering is. Like, if people ever heard of the book Man's Search for Meaning, that's kind of a traditional study of Viktor Frankl, who was in Auschwitz. And, when he was there, he was able to survive Auschwitz because he kept thinking, I'm going to get out someday, and I'm going to see my wife again, and I'm going to get out and help people. And he wrote a book and based a whole type of psychotherapy called logotherapy, which I'm sure many listeners are probably familiar with, on the idea that if somebody can have a purpose for what they're suffering, they can surmount it. And that's just a generalized, sort of, in a way, I don't want to say this, but I don't know how to say it in any other better way. It's sort of like a one-size-fits-all spiritual, thing, a category that somebody can fit themselves into. If you can find meaning for what you're suffering, then you can find a reason to suffer. But if you're suffering endlessly with no purpose whatsoever, and all you feel is pain, then, it's hard not to feel despair. Yeah. And that's what this book is trying to surmount, despair. It's trying to help people to know there is hope. And it's hope is actually something that moves you from one place to another. Hope is when you're at one point and you're trying to get to the next point. Hope is the peaceful mother, so to speak, that brings you to the next point, that helps you and nurtures you along. But if you don't have that hope, that's very serious to lose hope. And many people in our society have lost hope for various reasons, not just because of physical chronic illness, but because of many reasons. And that's what the book is really about.
People, again, the book is called Hold Me, Heal Me by Lindy Morelli. You got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places, but make sure to check out her personal site, sacredlighthouse.org. You're going to find more information on this book, but you're also going to check out her other one, The Open Gate to Paradise. These are books that need to be added to your shelf because they offer so much wisdom. Lindy, my follow-up question that I want to go into, you talked a moment ago about finding hope in what may appear to almost be insurmountable despair. Well, as we talk about not only your own personal journey, but this writing process, I think it brings up an interesting point. As you were creating this book and knowing that, listen, man, the end goal for this is hope. We're wanting to inspire. We're wanting to cultivate that hope in readers, but yet we're talking about something, that is heavy. We're talking about something that can really just bring that hope down almost at every aspect. So talk to us about the challenge of navigating those turbulent waters. How did you consistently find the message of hope while dealing with different chronic illnesses or dealing with journeys that were filled with so much despair?
Well, I was never filled with despair. That's the thing. I have felt despair at different times in my life, but despair is a deadly force. I believe it's from evil. I believe it's from the evil dark side. I believe it's from the evil one. It's not the will of God for any of us to succumb to despair, and I never will allow myself to succumb to despair, because I believe there are two forces in the world. There's good and there's evil, and they are constantly at war for our souls, and I never personally have felt despair. So I thank God that I do have a personal, vibrant faith, and that I believe in God, and I believe in the message of Jesus, and I believe that, there is hope. So I never lost hope in the midst of suffering, and I have always believed that there is a purpose for suffering. Yeah. So it depends on, it's actually what people encounter when they suffer is a crisis of faith. They're basically they're encountering the biggest questions of life. What am I here for? What's the purpose of my life? Is there any purpose at all? Is it just a big cruel joke? I mean, I'm sure I've asked that too at various times in my life. Is it a cruel joke? But I never succumbed to that, because I think I've been given extraordinary gifts, and it wasn't hard for me to balance the two things. I'm not saying that I didn't and don't feel extreme pain, but that's not really the focus.
Right.
Like what I'm trying to say is, if a person gets focused only on the pain and they don't have anything to motivate them, they don't have anything to look up other than at themselves and what they're suffering. Like when a person is turned in on themselves, and I don't mean this in any pejorative, critical way, right? But when a person is suffering, pain is a very loud voice. It screams very loudly, and a person can either turn inward or they can find another focus to look. And if they don't know where to look, then they're going to look at all kinds of things, maybe that they think might ease the pain, might help the pain, might answer the questions, but it might not answer. It might make things worse, like if they turn to an addiction or something, or they can find something that actually is going to actually help them. And that's what this book is actually about. So I didn't have the problem of battling despair versus hope. I didn't have that problem. And I'm so thankful that I've been given so many gifts in my life. I feel like I've been just, that a waterfall, a torrent, a cascade, a deluge of gifts has been poured upon me through no merit of my own, just because I'm loved by God, and that, I'm a loved, we're all beloved children of God, and He has a purpose. And it might sound like a bunch of religious pie in the sky, but, it's something worth, revisiting, because people are searching. Like when at the end of the day, what do people put their faith in? especially when they're confronted. Like, especially when you think of people who have been in Auschwitz, for instance. I mentioned that. How did somebody, you can see on YouTube, there are some videos of people who have survived horrific situations. How did they do that? They had to have something inside of them. And it couldn't be just, I'm just going to believe in myself and my own little world that I'm going to, try to create or something. Like, so I don't know. This message might not be palatable. It might not be palatable for everybody because not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to not everybody wants to get the focus off themselves and off their own little miserable world but the thing is when a person is turned in on themselves, things get worse and worse and worse and worse. Mm-hmm. They don't get better. That's really the truth. And it's hard not to be turned in on oneself when one is suffering. It's very hard not to. It's very hard not to be angry. It's very hard not to be bitter. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be down. It's okay to be sad. It's okay. But then what? What comes after all that? Like, that's what the book is about. Because I'm sure people want to know what's after that,
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be an after that somewhere.
I love what you're saying here, right? And listen, people, it is just raw. It is unfiltered. And really what she's talking about, what worked for her was her particular faith. And this is what I love. Maybe her higher power is God. That doesn't have to be for you. It kind of reminds me of that old adage of, rearing children, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And that is so true. But the notion behind that is being able to share the burden, not carrying it all upon yourself. So whether that higher power for you is God or you call that entity by a different name, the notion in trusting your faith into that is what is going to help in this instance. It's not an easy road. It's not just an overnight thing. It takes work, but the notion there is really what is so powerful.
And also there's practical things. Like, mm-hmm. In other words, how do I find joy in this? How do I make it through this day? How do I spend my time meaningfully when all I can do is stare at the ceiling because I'm lying in bed ill? How do I make the time useful? Is there anything I can do? There's practical solutions. There's practical things that can actually get a person from point A to point B. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. And people, listen, this book offers so much, but as we close out here, I mentioned a number of times, she has another book that she has written. I really want to take this opportunity and close out by learning a little bit more about that one as well. Because listen, this book, Hold Me, Heal Me, is amazing. It needs to be added to your shelf, but we've covered a lot of the essence of it and you got it. Okay. You understand why it is so profound. Well, the other book is just as important. That one is called, again, The Open Gate to Paradise, a lifeline for the wrongfully convicted and their families. I want to take a couple of minutes here, Lindy, as we close out. Tell us a little bit more about that other book so we know what to expect when we purchase it.
Well, I've been advocating for the wrongly convicted in a couple different states in the U.S. for over 10 years. And I've been working in prison ministry for a very long time. And people, I'm sure you know from television that there are such things as wrongful convictions. Maybe a few years ago, people might have been more skeptical. But it does happen. It's very tragic when it happens to a family, when it happens to a person. I mean, if you could just imagine being a totally innocent person and then all of a sudden somebody breaking into your office and, a police who thinks they're doing their job in the right way and who has no idea that they may or may not know that they're doing the wrong thing. I mean, there's a lot of good policemen and there's some that are not doing their job well. But if you're a person who's innocent and you all of a sudden are arrested and thrown into jail and prosecuted and convicted and you didn't commit the crime and your life changes and you spend decades in prison and your family goes broke, what do you do in that situation? Mm-hmm. So I've personally dealt with that, with a family member, a person who's like a family member to me, and also as an advocate our organization helps the wrongly convicted. We help to provide, the support that they need in whatever way we can. So the book is to give practical and hope, again, the word hope, to people who are in that situation, both families and friends of the wrongly convicted and the wrongly convicted themselves.
People, listen, Lindy, we're going to have to invite you back on. All right. Because that is a book that deserves a lot of attention in a similar fashion to the Hold Me, Heal Me, because we can look up countless number of examples where that has been unfortunately the case, where someone has been wrongfully imprisoned. And we can dive down that rabbit hole and have that discussion on why that is, on the prison system, on how often people are imprisoned, not only wrongfully imprisoned, but then have these just extreme sentences that are placed on. I mean, man, that is a conversation for another day, but that is something that I also have a very strong feeling about, and I would love to continue the discussion further. People, you know where you gotta go, man. I'm gonna stop myself from going on a bit of a tirade here because this is not about me. All right, it's about Lindy. We're gonna keep it honed in here. But one last time, Hold Me, Heal Me was the anchor. The open gate to paradise was what we just closed out with. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, sacredlighthouse.org. Get involved today. Utilize these books. As she mentioned, both of them have this underlying message of hope. And that is truly the message. That is the theme carrying through with all of this. Pick up your copies and infuse hope into your lives. Starts with these magnificent books. The work needs to be done after. These are just the precipice. But my goodness, are they a great way to start? You know where to go. Lindy, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute honor. Thank you for the wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you for creating these amazing books. But most importantly, thank you for being here with us to discuss it through people of distinction.
Thank you.